Thanks for joining me. I'm Rebecca Mills with Utah State University Extension, here to share some wellness wisdom to help you meet your health goals. Today, I hope you had a good morning, because we're going to talk about breakfast. In today's session, we'll cover why breakfast is important, what foods to include, and some tips for a healthy breakfast. I'm sure you've heard the saying, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Why is that? Let's dive in a little deeper to these 4 reasons. First, how breakfast can kickstart your metabolism. Next, what breakfast has to do with weight loss and weight management. Then, how breakfast can actually improve your overall daily nutrition. And lastly, how breakfast increases our ability to learn. Okay, so metabolism. What is that anyway? Some of the words we hear associated with the word metabolism are that it can be slow or fast, or that it's possible to change the speed of our metabolism and kick it up a notch. Our metabolism is the collection of chemical reactions that happen in our body to turn the calories we eat into the energy that our body needs. If our bodies stopped metabolizing, we would die. Plain and simple. So, yay for metabolism! The process is rather complicated, and if certain hormones, like from our thyroid and pancreas, aren't functioning properly, it can throw off the delicate balance of whether our body is storing energy or burning it. Storing it would equal weight gain, burning it would equal weight maintenance or loss. I tell you, the human body is an amazing thing. It is incredible that we are all as normal as we are. So, back to how breakfast and metabolism work together. Breakfast literally means the meal where we break our fast. Whether you work days or even the night shift, the first meal you eat after a prolonged rest would be referred to as breakfast. While we sleep, our bodies are in recoup mode. When we get up and start moving around, we need energy to fuel us. So it's particularly important to eat soon after we wake up. If our bodies aren't fueled before we ask them to work, they instinctually start storing whatever energy we give them, and they store it as fat. Seems counterintuitive, but nonetheless true. Elisabetta Politi, a nutrition manager at the Duke University Medical School, said, quote, "Eating early in the day keeps us from starvation eating later on." She continued on to say that when we don't eat breakfast, you're actually fasting for 15 to 20 hours, so you're not producing the enzymes needed to metabolize fat in order to lose weight. Close quote. And according to other research, breakfast skippers tend to eat more food than usual at the next meal, or nibble on high-calorie snacks to stave off hunger. Several studies suggest that people tend to accumulate more body fat when they eat fewer, larger meals than when they eat the same number of calories in smaller, more frequent meals. So it all starts with breakfast. We know that if we're consuming more calories than we're using, we'll gain weight. And if we're mindlessly nibbling all day long because our body is telling us we're starving, then the chances of overeating are likely. The opposite is also true. According to recent studies, eating a good breakfast actually helps you eat fewer calories over the course of the day. Of course, you need to be eating the right breakfast foods, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. And last but certainly not least, what parent wouldn't want their child to have every advantage when it comes to learning? Or even for yourself, are there days when you just feel like your head is in a fog and your ability to focus has been misplaced somewhere between your pillow and your desk chair? There has been an incredible amount of research done on the influence of breakfast on children and their ability to learn and focus in the classroom. Think about it. If you're hungry, what does your mind wander to? Thinking about food, of course. It also has been found that eating breakfast improves short-term memory and attention and helps youth perform better on reading, arithmetic, and problem-solving tests. Eating breakfast also impacts classroom behaviors, and research shows that kids who skip breakfast are tardy and absent from school more often than children who eat breakfast on a regular basis. And skipping breakfast is strongly linked to the development of obesity. Overweight and obese children, adolescents, and adults are less likely to eat breakfast when compared to their quote-unquote thinner counterparts, as one study states. It may not be surprising to learn that the American Dietetic Association estimates that more than half of male adolescents regularly skip breakfast, and more than 2/3 of adolescent girls report routinely missing the meal. Close quote. You might think you're saving calories by not eating, but it's just not the case. Our lives are busy, I get that, but at what cost? In reality, some of those costs are obesity and decreased productivity. That's not positive at all. So let's turn it around. Now that we're convinced, right, that breakfast is the way to go, let's talk about getting the most out of it nutritionally. Here are a few concerns or comments I've heard when it comes to breakfast. Do I have to have all the food groups? Hot versus cold, does it matter? How much is enough? And how can I make breakfast quick? Because I am on the go. Going back a bit to the reasons why kids should eat breakfast, psychologists at Tufts University conducted experiments to determine how a variety of breakfast foods affected children's performance at school. What they found was that the kids who had no breakfast performed the worst, obviously, and then the next were the kids who had a low-fiber, high-sugar cereal with milk, and best of all were those kids who had whole grains with milk. These researchers pointed to the importance of, quote, the mixture of protein, fiber, and complex carbohydrates in the morning, close quote. In other words, instead of thinking about food groups, let's instead think about the nutrients we get from the different food groups. Alright, so let's talk about that quote for a moment. Protein, fiber, and complex carbs. I'm going to go over it in reverse order. So first, a review about carbohydrates. There are two types, simple and complex. Simple carbs, like sugar, burn off really quick and often give us a burst of energy followed by a crash in our energy levels. Those high and low peaks are hard on our metabolism and on our productivity. A complex carbohydrate is more difficult to break down, and therefore the benefits are sustained over a longer period of time. Example of complex carbs are things like whole grains. In breakfast terms, think oatmeal and other hot cereals and various cold cereals. Noting whether a food has whole grains is one of the things that is highlighted on the front of a lot of food packaging now. And the Whole Grains Council actually has this little icon that you can look for if you're wanting more whole grains in your diet. It's called a stamp, the whole grain stamp. Also, when you look at the ingredient list, look to see if the whole grain is listed within the first few ingredients, if not the very first. That tells you that it's a primary ingredient in the food you're about to eat, not one of the afterthought ingredients near the end of the list. Current dietary guidelines recommend making at least half of the grains you consume be whole grains and aim for 48 grams or more daily. Look for the stamp and it will tell you exactly how much you're getting. Next is fiber. One great thing is that if you're eating whole grains, you're also getting fiber. Foods high in fiber will help you stay full longer and often have fewer calories than foods with low fiber. Aim for 5 grams of fiber at breakfast so that it can sustain you through lunch. Another great place to get fiber is by eating fruit with your breakfast. Think about the difference between drinking a glass of apple juice or the alternative of chopping up an apple to have in your oatmeal. The juice is lacking all the great fiber you'd get if you just eat the apple. Lastly, I want to spend some time talking about protein, its value in our diet, and why including a protein source in your breakfast is important. Protein provides similar benefits to the fiber and whole grains. It helps us feel full and control our appetites. But what is a protein, and are all proteins created equal? And how much should we have? Proteins are made of peptides, and peptides are made of amino acids, which is a term you may have heard before. There are 20 different amino acids, and our body makes 11 of them, but the other 9 that we call essential amino acids need to come from our diet. There are a myriad of different foods that provide these amino acids in our diet, including nuts, dairy products, eggs, vegetables, fruits, and grains. Some foods provide more grams of protein per serving than others. Some don't provide a complete amino acid profile, but by having variety in our diet, we can be sure to get the proteins we need. This chart gives some examples of some of the best sources for getting protein in our diets. The recommended daily allowance for protein is 56 grams a day for men and 46 grams a day for women. A lot of times when we say lean protein, the first thing that comes to mind is meat or eggs. And so when we think breakfast, we might think, oh, I need to have bacon, sausage, or eggs every day. This isn't the case, however. Because proteins come from so many different sources, you can count the milk on your cereal or other low-fat dairy products like yogurt or cottage cheese. Or if you just put some peanut butter on your toast or some nuts in your yogurt parfait, that could count too. Let's get right down to it. How much do you really have to eat at breakfast time to get all these great benefits? The answer is it really doesn't have to be much, and it doesn't have to take much time either. According to an ABC News poll, cold cereal is the #1 breakfast food among those Americans who are actually eating breakfast, which is only about 54% of us. So if cold cereal is your choice, you're probably also putting milk on it, right? Choose 1% milk for you guessed it, a lean, low-fat protein. Okay, now you need some fiber. Well, cut up a banana and add that to your cereal, or some berries, and you're doing pretty good. A lot of cereals are fortified these days, so you're also getting some vitamins and minerals. The thing to watch with cereals is the whole grain and sugar content. You want whole grains to be at the top of the ingredient list and the sugars to be low. If you think about that 4 grams of sugar is a teaspoon, how much do you really want to be eating every morning? Some other examples could be a smoothie. Those are quick and can be taken on the go. Yogurt or milk will give you protein, berries and other fruits will give you fiber, and you can even add some leafy greens like spinach for an extra nutrient punch. If you haven't tried a green smoothie yet, you should. They are pretty good. Maybe pair this with some whole wheat toast, and there again, you're good to go. Another option would be to make some things ahead of time, put them in the freezer and heat them up later. Sure, you can buy pre-frozen waffles or breakfast sandwiches, but they are loaded with sodium and preservatives to help them be shelf-stable for long periods of time. Why not just make your own? You can freeze pancakes, waffles, muffins, or French toast and then heat them in the microwave or toaster. A little bit of planning can go a long way when it comes to being short on time in the mornings. Lastly, there are prepackaged foods like granola bars, breakfast shakes, and various breakfast-in-a-package options. The caution I would add is to be sure you're reading the label to check for calorie, fat, sodium, and sugar content. Are there a lot of ingredients on the list that you can't pronounce? What's really in that grab-and-go bar? Use your nutrition smarts to make a good choice where you can. In summary, today we've focused on the benefits of eating breakfast. Study after study have shown how breakfast helps us learn and be productive mentally, as well as helping our body functions stay regulated. And most importantly, when we make healthy breakfast choices and include fiber, protein, and complex carbohydrates like whole grains, eating breakfast can help us lose weight or maintain a healthy weight. Thanks for joining me today as we learned about the importance of starting out every morning with a healthy breakfast. I hope you've been inspired as you strive to make healthy choices and reach your goals. This is Rebecca Mills with Utah State University Extension, sharing a little wellness wisdom. Now go out and make it a healthy day.